So there I was, coming back down off of the side of a mountain with some faith restored in who I was and remembering who I was, some faith in myself perhaps restored. This was about a year ago, and it was just after I had both created an intention of um, bringing some intention to this part of my life, and agreeing with my husband that, hell yeah, it was time to really actually relocate to Maine, where we have always wanted to live, and doing it in a way that um, that meant we would be living on a big piece of property, in a sort of middle of nowhere situation, which was really what we wanted. And then being told by him, I wish to see a couples counselor. I'm not happy in our marriage. And I think the last video was really about the importance of remembering who I was and getting like how I was able to remember that. uh, and this one I wish to be about kind of what happened next, because this whole series, this whole season of True to Ourselves is about how do we actually do the things we want to do in life? How do we create or manifest what we want to have, to be doing, to feel? Like, how do we be who we want to be and bring that intention? Um, so that's where we're going today. I'm glad you're here along for the ride. I am Kay. I am a coach. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I'm a person on a buck wild journey, and I'm really glad to have you along for the ride. And just pausing for breath, because as this season has been kind of unfolding, we are also moving into this home and purchasing it, and saying goodbye to our old home, and just there's been so much alive and in the air. Um, there have been some hiccups. It's been really interesting to see us as we've come through them. Um, and there have been I would say, some real ups and downs. Uh, and today's episode, today's share is really about an important mechanism for me all along in navigating these ups and downs, because we don't have a clue about what is around the bend. um, all we can do is kind of have some settings inside of ourselves to help us feel okay, even as the things that are happening are happening. So, and for me, that mechanism is expressed very simply. I am not my thoughts. We are not our thoughts. And um, I did not know that for a really long time. I was 50 before I was aware that in here I have these things uh, that are sort of chattering in motion all the time. And the realization that I am not my thoughts was essential to not just manifesting our dream property and moving on to it, and bringing intention to this part of my life, but really being okay as life has unfolded. It's really kind of um, this has been such important learning. I was almost going to say the most important learning, and it's pretty close, but who knows? But there will be other learning that I'd like to share with you that that will be as important. Uh, so just to keep it in sequence. So we're still in September of 2024 on our journey to manifesting and purchasing, moving into our dream home, um, on 24 acres, a beautiful timber frame, also known as a post and beam home, in a beautiful part of Maine, it's about 25 minutes from the coast, and it's got a lot of amazing community aspects to it, even though for example, it doesn't even have a library, but it's part of a library system that is in a nearby library that just, I don't know, makes everything feel right and community based. There's a lot of really good community aspects that we're discovering, or that I'm discovering up here. And the ability to like have neighbors and have them be out there when we would like to go and find them and enjoy company with them feels great, because we don't have to see anyone if we don't want to, right? Like it's our dream. My husband and I have always had this dream that we would love to live on 24, I'm sorry, 24 acres is what it turned out to be. But since we got married, we've been joking that we would love to live on 40 acres with a house in the middle. And I mean, 24 acres is pretty close to 40 acres when what you've been living on your whole life is a lot less. We were realizing uh, we now live on 50 times the land that we've ever lived on. And we have felt very fortunate to have our half acre in the suburbs of Boston. But this is an order of magnitude that is like, pew. and and in order to actually bring it about, back in September of 2024, I had absolutely no idea what would come of the intention. And so after really feeling like I'd hit some rapids where I didn't understand why my husband would feel differently about me than our marriage, and was he asking for me to change myself? Um, and who was I anyway? And who was I if I wasn't going to be married anymore? And all these really questions that seemed so scary at the time. Um, they How we ended up with this property and doing what we're doing really came about because we were, at least I can't speak for my husband. This is not a series about his thoughts and his feelings, although I've been grateful to be witness to them and be along for the ride. But I wish to share with you how I've been feeling and how I've been acting. And so once I remembered who I was, which happened in early September 24, after these rapids of being asked to see a couples counselor, etc. What I did then was I got really curious about this experience that I was having of life, and did my best to bring real awareness and presence to it. So there's a wonderful podcast called First This, and one of the episodes, the creator talks about uh, how actually is that well, she's also got an episode called I Am Not My Thoughts, but for me, that's not where this idea came up. And perhaps I'll return to the other thought in a moment. But really, where I first learned of I Am Not My Thoughts was I read a book called Untethered Soul, The Untethered Soul, which is about like it really was helpful for translating ancient understandings of what it is to be a human being to kind of a Western sensibility, where, because I think in our culture we're not conditioned to have an understanding of what's going on inside of our own selves. We're taught to uh, come and go at the sound of a school bell, and we are taught to, listen up or else, and we are taught um, that there's a lot in life to be scared of if you step outside your comfort zone. And I think as human beings, to be able to understand that those are thoughts, they're our conclusions, or the people in our world's conclusions about the world. They're not an actual experience of the world. And I think the first experience that I had of understanding that I am not my thoughts. Yes, I did some reading up from that book, um, and yes, I loved this podcast that I just was referencing before. That it's good to be able to take in knowledge and be able to think on it and reflect on it. It is different than doing. And so much of being curious and being able to sit with the idea of being curious or of understanding what the thoughts are, um, it's the doing of it that is important, and it can be a really fucking scary thing to do. So the I'd like to go back a little further than 2024 to when I was first having the understanding that I am not my thoughts. There's a couple of ways that this showed up. So one was I was really wanting to explore or experience the stars. Like I was really wanting to be outside at night. And we lived on a wooded area, so we had like a sort of unbuildable area behind us on our suburban street in our suburban town. And this was before I did my solo hike across northern England, in one of the most rural and rugged places in the whole country. Um, it was before that, so it was as I was developing this sort of wish to really be on my own outside. And what I noticed was that I was also like scared as heck to be outside on my own. I was afraid of the woods. I was afraid of predators. I was afraid of what was in the dark that I couldn't see if I stepped out onto my back deck at night. And and what what I wish to share today was the experience of understanding that I still could step out onto my back deck at night, even though I had these thoughts in my head about being scared, and um, that it was the thoughts that were preventing me from opening the back door and stepping outside. And I remember having this thought of like, all right, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to stand in front of the back door in pitch darkness, which it's funny because it isn't even really pitch darkness in suburban Massachusetts. There's a lot of light. There's just a lot of ambient light. But anyway, it, what would happen as I would try to do this? I mean, you'd think it would be the simplest thing, right? You just go open the friggin' door and you step outside. And what I noticed was the light from inside the house would reflect on the window of the back door. So I would feel before I opened the door, it was really scary because I couldn't see what was outside. I could only see reflected what like the lights of the inside. So I would feel as if I was stepping out into like nothing, even though I knew that somewhere part of me knew that there was a deck, there was a something that I was going to be able to land on and put my feet on when I stepped outside. And that was so challenging. Um, Two things had me able to do it. One was I was really motivated. I was like, I just want to be able to see the stars. What can I see of the stars tonight? I would really like to see that. And the other was just remembering, or at least being aware of, these are thoughts that I'm having. I'm afraid to open the door, not because the door is locked, not because there's anything dangerous that I know of outside. It's all thoughts. It's all thoughts. And so, oh, the joy of being able to go, oh, I hear that. Isn't that interesting? Is that evidence of reality or is it a thought? And then having the evidence of reality being I unlock the door, I pull the door open, I step outside. Because once the door was open, I could totally see the deck. I could see our grill was sitting on the deck, and um, I could step outside, and then I could look up, and some nights it was cloudy, and some nights it was many, many stars, and some nights it was rainy, and some nights it was cold and snowy. I just decided that I was gonna do this every night and see what the experience was, rather than concluding that there were scary bad things outside that were ready to hurt me. Um, Never once on that deck was there anything scary or bad and ready to hurt me. I lived in a very safe neighborhood. I lived in a very safe part of the world. Um, and I would forget that when I was just about to open the door. My brain would be like, oh my God, you can't see what's out there. Oh, like this is really scary. And at the time, I remember feeling after I'd maybe done that for 3 or 4 weeks, first of all, I was like in happy tears because there's this little star cluster called the Pleiades, which I learned about as a college student. And I used to see the Pleiades all the time when I was like, an adolescent or well, not an adolescent necessarily, but like in my 20s when I would just feel safe to go outside and enjoy the night, right? Um, as a camp counselor, I can remember doing that. And then I think for me, the experience of like having children, seeing what could be scary in the world, that what might hurt my children really made me much more afraid for my own safety. And and it's been interesting to navigate that, like seeing them being okay, seeing them step out into their lives. They're 25 and 21 now, so they are not interested in the quote protection of their mother anymore. I also have begun, especially witnessing them and being so inspired by them. I've begun to have an understanding of things that I thought were scary. That was all just thoughts, you know? Um, some people really enjoy, for example, being a paramedic and encountering all kinds of scary circumstances, um, because and this is our 25-year-old, he's so motivated to uh, to help people and to he's a great medic, and he is doing great work. Uh, what is it work that I would have chosen for him? Maybe not, but to watch him choose it for himself is amazing. Um, they have both shown me and been so inspiring to me about what's possible when you set yourself on a course of dreaming big and taking steps to get there. And that's really, if it's funny, because the story that naturally came up for me was to share with you about I am not my thoughts is the idea of stepping out onto that back porch, which I did for years. I think I started that in 2022, and the last time I stepped out on our porch was when we were leaving Massachusetts because we'd sold our home, and I stepped out on my back deck the night before we left, and I just expressed gratitude for the ability to see the stars and and to experience the weather conditions and to hear the birds, whatever they were, whatever the conditions were. I would say the thoughts that had me feeling really scared to step out, it's not that I don't ever hear them anymore. It's that I acknowledge and understand that's a part of my brain that wants to protect me. There's a part of me that is afraid about what the world might have in it. And to remember I am not my thoughts and to just tune into what are the feelings I'm experiencing in my body. I think um, a not a challenge, but a question that has come up when I've shared this is, well, like, what if it's false evidence? What if you can't trust, something that you think is accurate? And I think it's a really great question. For me, the answer has been I really trust my own intuition. I remember in my training to cross England one time, I went to a local place to take a walk, and in the parking lot of this place, as I did my walk and I was coming back, and there was a man in the parking lot who intuition just told me, and intuition never has, very, very rarely has a thought come up of this is not a person you want to interact with right now. Um, but it did that day. So what happened was I was able to just from my heart wish him compassion, wish him well, and continue on my way to my car, um, without stopping to engage because this was someone who was I didn't understand at the time. what I understood was get the fuck to your car now. This is not a person to interact with. But do it, and I suppose do it in a kind way. Like I don't have to be aggressive. I can just continue in motion as I'm moving toward my car and as I am leaving this parking lot. When I reflected later, what I think was happening for that person, or what my gut told me was happening for that person, was very, very big emotions. And my experience taught me that big emotions like that are really super unpredictable for the people experiencing them, and then also correspondingly for the people around the person experiencing that. And it didn't feel safe to me to be in that environment, so I got out of there. So when I was stepping out onto my back deck, and when I was turning that knob and hearing the thoughts, I was also bringing my awareness to what was true in an intuitive sense. And maybe twice over those 3 years, because it was 2025, summer 2025 when I last did this, maybe twice. I would say more than once, but not 3 times. When I would step out onto the deck, maybe I heard something in the woods, maybe I uh, felt something in the air. I remember one of these moments was I smelled something that smelled like aftershave. And I was like, I didn't even realize that until later, but like, why am I smelling aftershave on my back deck at 11 o'clock at night when there's no one else around? And so I stepped back inside. I decided those were nights where I thought I'll take a breath and see. And then there were, I believe, 2 nights where I stepped back inside. Um, not that, and it's funny. I feel different about those than I did about the. Had I stayed in that parking lot with that person, I think it's there is a likelihood that would have been a negative, something negative would have happened. In those 2 instances where I heard something in the woods or where I smelled aftershave, I didn't feel not safe. I just felt like this is weird enough that I'm going to step inside and see what the result is of what's going on. And once a coyote stepped out of the woods and walked onto our street and walked up the street. A little one looked like a really quite a scrawny small creature, and my heart went out to him. I don't know why I say him, but that's how it felt to me. And the other time I realized, it was only later that I realized this, there was a ladder on the deck because my husband would sometimes get up and clear leaves. He would like bring a leaf blower up onto the roof from the deck. And I think either someone else had used the ladder, or he got assistance to put it where it was, but somebody with aftershave had touched the ladder. And I was like, the next day, I think I was like, oh wow, that's where that smell is coming from. So um intuition is a really, really good thing to be able to trust, or to hear and understand and be able to tap into. I think it's an important part of, there's this corresponding, I didn't even know this was going to come up today, but like this kind of corresponding idea of I am not my thoughts. I can be curious about what's going on in my experience of life. And I can also trust my intuition and trust my inner wisdom. So that's today's share. And I hope it's helpful for you as you are creating your life, as you are encountering challenges and also charting your direction. And maybe that's the question I have for you today is like, what is, if you think of it that way, what emerges for you as a direction you'd like your life to go? Mine has been, I mean, we've done it now, so it's really interesting. Mine for this year has been um, manifesting and moving into my dream home. And now I'm seeing new horizons broaden from here, which I think is really interesting, and a new direction is emerging. And I'm happy to share about that in the coming, episodes, and perhaps I'll do a whole season on what that is. We'll see. But in this moment, I'm really curious, what's your direction? Like, where do you want to bring your life? What do you wish to have happen, or to experience, or to feel, or to do? I would love to hear. I'd love to hear. And if you would like some company on your journey, if you'd like to be um, supported by a group of people who are also on their journeys, who gather in the forums and in our weekly calls, just to witness and be together and cheer for each other, and to support as necessary, because sometimes things come up for people, and it's really good to have a place where you can be your full self and be true to yourself, and know that there are other people along on the ride with you. If you'd like to do that, I have created a community in the school platform, and the link to it is just below. I used to think of it as it's a place for recovering empty cup pourers. So people who have been pouring from an empty cup and are now experiencing what it's like to fill their own cup and live life from there. I think that's definitely one way of looking at it, but another is, or there's probably many others, but another is just to have some company with like-minded souls, you know, at an interesting inflection point in life. If that sounds good to you, if you'd enjoy that, um, to click the link in the show notes. The school platform is where it's located, and the group itself is called Dreamers and Doers, and we would love to see you in there. I'm wishing you very well today. Thank you for being here. Please share what your direction is for your life, what you'd like, where you'd like to be bringing your life. I'd love to hear. Share about that in the comments, and I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you for our next one very soon. Bye bye.